The A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft, nicknamed Warthog, is making enemy tactics look like basic training exercises. After sitting out major combat for 3 years, America's toughest plane is back in action. This time, it's not just protecting soldiers, it's hunting down missile teams before they can disappear. With special equipment on board, these planes now handle one of the hardest jobs: destroy missile teams before they hide. The Houthi fighters don't realize this old plane still has plenty of surprises. On March 29, 2025, several A-10 Warthogs from the 124th Fighter Wing along with 300 ground support staff from the 190th Fighter Squadron headed to the Middle East. This is the biggest deployment of these famous planes in 3 years, and they're doing more than just showing up. Flying from Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates, these aircraft are giving major support to Navy operations against an enemy whose tactics keep changing. The Houthis are developing shoot-and-scoot methods to avoid being found. Their basic plan works like this. Houthi fighters get target information from Iranian Revolutionary Guard advisors using Starlink terminals. After receiving this data, they roll camouflaged missile launchers out from mountain caves. These missiles are typically C-802 models, carrying a 165-kilogram armor-piercing warhead with a range up to 180 kilometers. While not cutting-edge technology, if they fire enough missiles, some will get dangerously close to their targets. The Houthis know that as soon as they fire, American forces will target them immediately, so they must move quickly. They typically roll launchers from hidden caves or valleys, fire missiles, and immediately hide again. This is exactly what the A-10 is there to stop. The first confirmed A-10 strike happened on April 1st. After taking off, the Warthogs reached their target area within 18 minutes. Thanks to their 11,000-pound fuel capacity, A-10s can circle over target areas for up to 90 minutes before needing to return to base. When supported by KC-135 refueling tankers, these aircraft can stay in the air as long as they have ammunition left, and they carry quite a weapon. See that barrel sticking from the nose? That's the GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon that runs nearly 19 feet through the aircraft's body. It fires 30mm armor-piercing shells at 3,900 rounds per minute. Each round weighs almost half a pound and contains depleted uranium. This weapon can destroy tanks in seconds. Against unarmored vehicles or exposed personnel like Houthi missile teams, the results are devastating. On that day, an RC-135 rivet joint surveillance plane intercepted Houthi radio signals indicating an upcoming strike. Since American forces had destroyed most secure Houthi communications, enemy commanders now rely on civilian cell phones, making them easier to locate. The attack was planned for less than 20 minutes later, so 2 A-10s flew at maximum speed to reach the area. With a top speed around 420 miles per hour, it would take about 18 minutes to arrive, just barely in time. As the A-10s flew over Yemen's mountains and desert, pilots used a special device to search for targets. This is called the AN/AAQ-28 Lightning Pod, which helps pilots ensure accurate targeting. Mounted on a wing pylon, the pod is 87 inches long and 16 inches wide. This roughly 440-pound device contains high-resolution infrared sensors, laser designators, and cameras that let pilots spot human-sized targets up to 28 miles away. But for this mission, the A-10s would get much closer. As pilots approached their target, they saw Houthi fighters unaware of danger as they moved a fully loaded launcher from a cave. With no enemy radar working due to previous American strikes, the A-10s approached low and slow. From 6,500 meters away, they fired their cannons with the famous BRRT sound. Though each plane carries about 1,150 rounds of 30mm ammunition in an internal drum, pilots usually limit firing to 1 to 2 seconds to save ammo and prevent overheating. In those 2 seconds, the A-10 aircraft fired about 260 baseball-sized rounds, each traveling at 3,500 feet per second. The launcher was completely destroyed. This was just the beginning of a risky operation by the U.S. Air Force. On April 2nd, a surveillance satellite detected unusual heat signatures northeast of Sadr. Since few people in Yemen own vehicles, especially 5-ton trucks, intelligence identified this as a possible mobile launcher and alerted the Air Force for closer inspection. But there was a problem. While the A-10 is very capable, it flies slower and lower than regular fighter jets when using its 30mm cannon. This makes the Warthog more vulnerable to ground fire. For protection, a 1,200-pound titanium bathtub surrounds the pilot. This armor can stop 23-millimeter bullets and sometimes larger ones, as proven in previous conflicts. However, the A-10 isn't completely bulletproof. With Houthis now aware that A-10s were operating in the area, they alerted everyone, and soon every remaining Houthi radar was scanning for an easy target. Thankfully, other aircraft would prevent this. These planes are called A-18G Growlers. They look like F-18s because they're built on the same frame but modified with special sensors and weapons for missions called Suppression of Enemy Air Defenses, SEAD. Think of CAD this way. Would you rather fight a big opponent with a 50-50 chance of winning, or poke him in both eyes first and then attack? That's basically what SEAD does, as Growlers primarily take out enemy radars. The system on the Growler is called the Next Generation Jammer. Here's how it clears the way for incoming A-10s. When Houthi operators turn on their radars, they broadcast on specific frequencies. Since the next-gen jammers work in the mid-band frequency range, about 2 to 6 gigahertz, they can detect these signals. The U.S. maintains a database of every enemy search, surface, fire control, and missile radar worldwide. When the system detects these signals, it automatically identifies the type and calculates the radar's location. The pilot then sends a continuous 270-kilowatt energy burst toward the Houthi radar. Radars work by tracking the time between when signals are sent and received. However, when hit with such powerful energy, the radar can't detect its own signals because the jammer overwhelms the system. While some modern radars resist jamming, most Houthi systems use older Soviet or Iranian designs that get disabled. It's like plugging in an appliance that draws too much power and damages the outlet. Same principle. Within 15 minutes, Growlers from the USS Eisenhower had disabled 3 Houthi radar installations. Now that the enemy was blind, A-10s got clearance to begin their attack. Using lightning targeting pods, they detected movement. 3 launchers, including one being covered with a camouflage tarp. The lead pilot fired a laser-guided AGM-65 Maverick missile from 26 miles away to prevent escape. With its 125-pound warhead, the Maverick hit the first launcher directly. The secondary explosion from the launcher's own missiles was enormous. Shrapnel tore through 2 nearby launchers, creating large holes. The crews tried escaping in a Toyota pickup but didn't get far. The second Warthog approached low at just under 250 knots, about 288 miles per hour. The pilot briefly squeezed the trigger. A half-second burst from the GAU-8 sent 50 rounds into the truck, neutralizing 4 more operators. By April 10th, Houthi activity had noticeably changed. Previously active launch sites went quiet. According to intercepted communications, conversations between field commanders and Iranian advisors became more defensive. Iranian advisors reportedly moved to Sawan and hid deeper underground. Instead of cell phones, they set up antenna relays and buried fiber optic cables. But they couldn't hide from an aircraft that hunts using heat signatures. With the A-10's Lightning Pod, pilots don't rely solely on satellite data. Once a general area is identified as potentially hostile, pilots can patrol visually, wait for movement, and track vehicle exhaust or heat from underground bunkers. The pod is so advanced, its sensors can distinguish between idling engines and decoys. Combined with drone surveillance, each A-10 becomes the ultimate airborne hunter. The Houthis knew this, but underestimated how long a Warthog would wait. One team learned this on April 13th. Operating from Joff province, they moved out a launcher loaded with a C-802 missile positioned near an irrigation barrier and waited for GPS coordinates from their Iranian handlers. Unfortunately for them, a U.S. drone had spotted their movement 40 minutes earlier. A Warthog was already circling and approaching. At 3,000 feet, flying just above the mountaintops, the pilot waited until reaching the ideal Maverick missile range of about 7 nautical miles. With the ability to carry 6 missiles, 3 under each wing, the pilot fired 2 to destroy the launcher and its radar. When the Houthi operators saw the Warthog, they abandoned their equipment and ran. But the last thing they heard was a BRRT, and it was over. Surprisingly, the A-10 often didn't need to attack directly to stop Houthi launchers. Here's another tactic. Because Houthis sometimes hide launchers in crowded areas, the U.S. needs ways to neutralize threats without civilian casualties. This is often impossible in dense urban settings. That's why A-10s use a maneuver called a show of force. When pilots conduct a show of force, They're essentially bluffing the enemy. It works like this. Back at base, ground crews fully arm the A-10 with 6 Mavericks, a full drum of 30mm ammo targeting pod, everything needed for combat. When A-10s are patrolling and get called to an area where Houthis are firing around civilians, the A-10s first swoop in, pretending they'll attack. Of course, the Houthis don't wait to confirm. They and anyone nearby immediately seek cover. Then the A-10s can make another pass or call in other aircraft. Though these tactics seem unusual, by mid-April, the results were clear. Houthi missile activity had decreased by nearly 70% compared to early April. Navy ships reported fewer radar locks, and some tankers even resumed travel without naval escorts for the first time in 2 months. It was a quiet but important victory. No headlines, but significant impact. Strategically, the A-10's success has renewed debates about close air support roles. While the Air Force still plans to retire the fleet by 2029, Marine and Navy commanders have requested extended deployments. The numbers speak for themselves. From April 2nd to 17th, A-10s flew 218 missions without any American losses. According to Central Command, they destroyed 47 confirmed missile systems and neutralized 9 senior Houthi commanders. The A-10 has proven valuable in what many considered primarily a Navy operation. While debate continues about the A-10's future, for Houthis in the field, the only question when they see a Warthog is whether it's passing by or lining up to attack.